Hi, in today's video we'll talk about Power Apps components. So components is the best way you can reuse your code among your apps. You can use components inside a single app, or you can, as I said, share it among different apps. So you can access the components feature through this button here, and you'll see these three options. In fact, these two options here from the bottom, the way we use to import or export components, they are being revamped and changed by Microsoft. So if you go to settings, upcoming features, and retired, you'll see that it is on by default when you create an app, but it's deprecated. So I suggest you start using the new way, which is the way we are going to talk about in this video. In this video, we will also talk about how can you pass parameters to your components as input, and to have output parameters from your components as well. So let's turn it off. So we have we won't be using the old way. We use the new way, which are the components library. So if you want to use a component from inside an app and won't be sharing with different apps, you can still use here. Like, you can create your components like we used to. You can add here your label, you can use your formulas, add your icon, whatever you are used to creating your component, you can still do it. And here, when you are creating from inside an app, you have the option to access app scope. So if you want to use your global variables, your collections, your screens, you turn it on and then you can access it. So this label here, if I want to grab my screen one, which is the name of our screen, let's say orientation, it will show you vertical because it's our app setting. And then if we remove the access app scope, you don't have access to this anymore because it's a global, and this app is restricted to only access the variables and everything here from inside the app scope. Okay, but let's go to the fun stuff. Let's go to the new way. Let me hit back here, and so I can show you where you can create your components library. So here under apps, you have this button here to the right, component libraries. It's still in preview, but we can use it. So let's create our first component library. And the library is a cool way because we can group our components based on their categories, there's what's about, and we can have different libraries and share only specific ones to the people we want. So here we have our library ready, and here we can add as many components as we want, and then we can save and publish so people start using our components. Okay, so let's create our first component, and it will be a header. So let me add a rectangle here. Let's move it to the top, and let's stretch it. The component, you can see here, it doesn't have more that option of allow global scope. I think it's what it's called, because now we don't have this anymore because we are in the library. We're not inside an app. But let's change the height of our component, and it will be the same height of our rectangle. Great. Now let's add our back arrow. Okay, let's make it here. Let's make it a little bit bigger, and let's paint it white. So here in our components, we can use the same properties we are used to work with in Power Apps. So the onSelect property of this back button will be the back property, which is a navigate to your previous screen. And let's add a title, which will be the screen title. So let me just adjust here the sizing. Okay, let's add a padding to the left, something about 30. And let's make it white as well. Make it semi-bold. Oops. Let's make it semi-bold. Great. This is our header component. From now, we'll keep the screen title fixed, but then we'll change it to a input parameter So we'll be able to name our screen titles after we adjust it. But let's see how it works. We have our first component. Let's use in our app. In fact, let's just rename it so it will be called header. Okay, now we save our library. So it's like our first library. Let's save it, and then we'll publish it. So it will be accessible by other people and even by our own. Okay, so let's close. I think it's not giving us the option to publish because it's the first time, but then when we change it, it will prompt the publish button. Okay, let's create a new app. So let's call it, let's use our component. So make it a font size because we did a font sized header. Okay, so now we have our app, and let's turn it off the same feature that I showed it, the retired feature. So we won't have this access here anymore. But how can we import our component now? We hit this plus here to the left and then get more components. And here we can see our libraries. I just have one here available to this user, so it will only have this one, and our components will be listed here. But because we have only one so far, this is our only option. So let's import our header, and it will be listed here, like library components. We can add it. So great. Now we have our header in our screen one. So let's see if this back arrow works. So let's add a new screen. Let's add our component as well here. Let's add a header, great. And now let's create a button. And let's navigate to screen 2. So on select, we'll navigate to screen 2. Great. So we hit play, we go to screen 2, and then we hit back. Great, our header is functional. Now let's change the way the title is shown here, so it will display a value for the screen title as an input parameter. So let's save our app and let's open our library. So let's save. Okay. Okay, it's saving. Just a second. Okay, now let's open our library again, our component library. And I'll show you how can you add input values or output values. So we select the component here, and we can see here custom properties to the right. So we can add new ones. This one will be the screen title, and then it names the property here name automatically. We will leave the description this way to make it quicker. And here we have if it's an input or an output. In this case, we want input value. And here we have different options of the data the type of data. It's this property. We can do really fancy stuff here with tables and records and screens and everything. So it's almost, the possibilities are almost endless. But for this video, we'll keep it simple, and we are going to add texts and numbers only. Okay, now we have our input property. Its name is screen title, and here in our text in our component, we'll start from the component name header dot screen title. Yeah, we can have a default value, but it doesn't matter because we are going to change this property in our app. Okay, so now we're going to save and publish our components library, and you'll see once we open our app, it will prompt a message saying, so this library got changed. So do you want to update it? And we'll update it. So we use this new property in our app. So okay, let's open our app again. Okay, it's downloading. So there you go, component library updates available. So let's review. So this library got changed from the last time we opened this app, and we are going to update it. Okay, great. So now, when we click our component, we'll have a new property here called screen title, which is the property we created there. So now we can name it like main screen. And this property will be passed as a parameter to the component, and it will be used inside of the parameter, the component. And here we can have a different one, like the screen title will be called, so I don't know, second screen. And great. Okay, so now let's show you how to use the output parameter. Okay, let's save our app and open our library again. And let's create a simple calculator and then use the component in our app. Okay. So it's getting things ready. Just a second while it's loading. And okay, so we have one component, and we're going to add a new one. Let's name it only calc, and let's insert here a button. Let's name it add one. Let's add a new button called times 2. Let's add a label here. Cool. And what this button will do? This button will start a variable called temp value with the value it's going to add, every time this button is clicked, it's going to add 1 to this temp value, and it starts at 0. So it's going to keep adding. And this one is going to do similar, but it's going to multiply by 2. And have a third button here, which erases and clears this variable. Okay, great. And this text here is going to display the content of temp value. It's all inside the let's change it to a number. Yeah, we don't need, just for input values. It's all inside the component here. And how can we add an output property? So let's call it output number. And let's tag it as output, and let's choose number. And now when we click here, output number, it shows here the output value, but we don't want to be fixed 100. We want it to be temp value. So every time we perform an operation with temp value, it's going to update our output number here. And this is it. So let's save and publish our second component and update our library. And then let's open back our app and import this new component so we can use it. Okay, it's loading. Great, so we have to import again, so get more components, because here is only the one we imported in the first time. Now it has a new one, so we update our calc. Let's review. We have some updates in our components. Okay. Great. So now let's add our calc here. There we go. It's not the prettiest calculator, but I assure you it's working. And let's add a label here outside the component. Of course, everything we do here is outside the component, so we can see the value. So here we're going to select the calc1.output number. So here we have outside our calculator, and let's start using it. So if we hit add one, so we have this value inside the calculator and the value outside. Cool, right? If we want to clear, we can start all over. And in fact, if we start a new calculator here in the second screen, it's in a different scope. So the values are different. Let's add here a calc. So as you can see, this one it's 1 and this one it's 16. So they are different. We can keep adding here. There we go. So this is how we can use the new way of using the components, creating a library, sharing the library, and how can we input parameters in components and get output parameters from the components. So I hope you guys liked our today's video, and stay tuned for our next videos. Ciao, ciao.